Muskan Wali, and as long as you've participated last year, you've got a Muskan. But if you continue to stay invested in this Muskan a year from now, what will happen to the Muskan? क्या हंसी बनी रहेगी, हंसी और बड़ी होगी. So let's take the conversation forward with Nilesh Shah of Envision. Nilesh, firstly, Diwali greetings. Thank you for joining us.
Happy Diwali to you and your family and all the viewers and their families. So happy Diwali.
I wanted to take out a picture of 10 years ago and you still look the same, my friend.
As do you, Nikunj, by the way. As do you. The water fasting.
Diwali is the same market, so we are the same.
Only market goes up, age does not catch up for you.
Yes, absolutely.
So should we keep it simple, a sharp first question and then we can wrap up? Give us a Muhurat fix.
You're the boss. So.
Okay. What do you think one should do, given that there is much more, there's a lot of narrative. There is bubble and trouble in SME, there is trouble in small cap, there is a obese valuation in mid and small cap stocks, and large cap stocks are looking smart and slim. Everybody who's come on the channel has actually endorsed this vehemently. That what we've seen in last 1 year, we could see an opposite of that in next 12 to 18 months.
Nikunj, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. And why I say this, because you could probably say yes, mid and small caps have gone up. Is there a bubble? I don't think there's a bubble there. And that's purely because the earnings growth differential still is significantly higher in mid and small caps versus the large caps. You know, even if we just take the poster boy sector called banking, even for the foreseeable future, the smaller banks, the mid-sized banks will still grow at a faster pace versus the large banks, unless we have challenges of asset quality. When do challenges of asset quality happen? When the economy gets into a downturn. We've hardly started. We have a long way to go in terms of the economy. The bankers are still cautious. The bankers are still trying to be rational. So I clearly believe that the mid and the small cap will continue to show better growth. The mid and small caps have certain advantages coming in from the GST reform, the technology adoption, the access to markets, the consumer market. These are some of the advantages that they have got over the last 2, 3, 4 years, which I think has pretty much created a level playing field. So yes, mid and small caps have outperformed, but are they in a bubble zone? I don't think they're in a bubble zone.
Nilesh, last Diwali when we had you in our studios, I remember it was all about khana pina. It was all around, consumption. From there, there's been a tectonic shift. It's all about manufacturing now across the spectrum. Do you stay put in the consumption names, add to manufacturing, or you think manufacturing is that one space where you got to be in?
I believe both are very long-term plays.
Okay.
The khana pina will continue.
Of course.
And it is only going to get...
It doesn't look like you eat at all, but yeah, anyway.
But it will continue, and it will continue for many, many years. Even on Friday, when we had earnings coming in from a couple of the khana pina segment,
Yes.
the smaller companies, just look at it. Earnings beat, and there's nothing which is stopping them. And I clearly believe this is something which will keep happening for the next 5-10 years for the long term. Manufacturing is extremely interesting.
True.
And that's again something which is going to be, keep probably growing again for the long term. But I think clearly for the next 1 year, it's going to be the len-den sector, which is the banking sector, the investment sector, the financial sector, which probably took a bit of a backseat last year. But my view is that it will probably come back with a vengeance in the coming year.
But there's a lot of churn out there, right? HDFC Bank has done nothing, Kotak has done nothing. There have been a few odd big stars like an IDFC First, for instance, or for that matter, what an ICICI Bank, Axis, etc. have done. Will the churn continue? And would you have to pick out your winners within banks, or do you think it's going to be across the board, everything is going to rise in the tide kind of a situation?
My view is it's going to be across the board.
Okay.
And why do I say this? It's because number one is I think once the uncertainty or the event of 2024 election is out of the way, you're going to see very large allocations coming in from foreign portfolio investors. Clearly, banking and financials is a favorite of the FPIs. And when that happens, I think a gush of liquidity is coming where they can deploy on an overnight basis billions of dollars to work. That's number one. Second is I have a bit of a contrarian view on the macros, which is that currently we're all concerned about inflation and interest rates. The single indicator is that crude oil, despite the challenges in West Asia, despite what's happening with Iran and Palestine, crude is not able to cross even $90. Okay, And so my view is that it's quite possible we could see a softer crude oil environment over the next 12 months, because of which inflation could probably kind of ease. Interest rates probably have peaked. Higher for longer might be there, but it's quite possible it plateaus. If that happens, the concerns around NIMs for banks might just kind of come down. The kind of concerns that we've been hearing over the last couple of quarters, that higher rates for FDs, therefore lower NIMs and therefore pressure on profitability, that concern may not play out, and it may actually be a kind of a Cinderella situation for the banking sector. So I clearly believe banks and financials could be clearly a big sector for the year ahead.
PSBs included?
Across the board. I think across the board it's going to be, but I probably think that the private sector banks which have been languishing, the big private sector banks, they might just come back with strongly. I mean, they have not given returns for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if this would extend into the 4th year as well.
You know, speaking of Khana Pina, we all use our phones to order on the likes of Zomato, etc. We're so accustomed to this, and it's been a year of IPOs as well. So many companies hitting the public markets. What's the view on this entire space as a whole? Has there been any interesting business model maybe, or companies that you like?
Yeah, clearly digitization is essentially a very, very powerful phenomenon.
Yeah.
I mean, digitization, technology adoption. I think the Prime Minister himself has said that this decade is going to be India's decade.
Yeah.
We're going to see several businesses being built around technology. And so I clearly believe whether it is the consumer space, whether it's the financial space, the enterprise space, across the board, you're going to see many, many interesting business models evolve.
You like Zomato's business model?
I think it's a great business model. The biggest indicator is that today there is no third player. Nobody's even thinking about it. You look at any other space, everybody wants to get into this. This is one space when nobody wants to get in, or nobody's even talking about it, which means that there's something really, really strong, or what we call as moat, about this business. That what they have done for the last 10 years, nobody is confident of cracking the code. And that's what makes it so interesting.
It is India's decade to be, but the traditional techies have not done anything, barring a few KPIT or persistent. When will their time come?
I think their time is over.
Really?
I think the time
इंडिया
is
में
over.
किसी का टाइम ओवर नहीं होता है.
No, when I say over,
And
means
you know,
as
coming
investors.
from him who has always tracked IT.
No, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
It's not that these companies are over. It's just that for investors, they may not kind of give you the kind of returns that you're looking for, because the growth is not very high. The growth is low single digit. Okay, and I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah.
Even if you look at the last decade, when so much has happened in the world of technology, these companies, the large companies, the top 3-4 companies, have probably barely grown at 10% in terms of revenues over a 10-year period. That too in rupee terms. In an environment where probably the rupee has depreciated by 2-3%. So the dollar growth has been 6-7%.
Yeah.
So maybe in amongst the top 4-5 names, if there is anybody who gets the AI part of it really right, and if that AI part of it is very meaningful for their revenues, which means that it rakes in billions of dollars of revenues, then only will it make an impact. $100, $200, $300 million of AI revenue will not make an impact.
Yeah.
That is the difference. Versus that, the smaller companies, if they get AI right, it can change their world.
Yeah.
It will be a game changer for them.
Yeah.
And that's what we as investors want to look out
So
for.
Nilesh, Microsoft, I think last evening hit a new high. Pure bet on AI.
Yes.
Nvidia has had a good year because
Yes.
of back-end benefits of
Yes.
AI. If you have to bet on one or two names, large cap, small cap, mid cap, SME, doesn't matter. What is a pure AI play? Because AI तो आ रहा है.
I don't think, Nikunj, we still have a pure AI play.
Okay.
We don't have, and at best, we would just still be a services play on AI, which means helping enterprises globally to adopt AI. So I haven't yet come across a pure AI play, but yes, a lot of companies are making noises. Some of them are making strides. Some of them have also announced investment plans in AI, but that's about it. But we still don't have a situation where a company is standing up and saying, okay, now 10% of my revenues is coming in from generative AI. That is something which we are yet to see. But yes, there are some companies which have made some very interesting noises in this space, and we need to watch out how these companies can take forward this, scale up, and make it a meaningful part of the business.
Other than banks, what will be the breakthrough sector this time?
I'm not too sure about the breakthrough part of it. I still think it's going to be the banks and the financials which have a strong part. Consumers might come back. When I say consumers, means consumer staples have been again under pressure for the last year or two. It's quite possible that if my hypothesis turns out to be true, which is we probably will see sobering inflation, that will leave consumers with more money. The consumer companies will have better margins because of lower input cost pressures. If all of that happens, then it's quite possible that consumer staples, which may not have done too well in the year gone by, probably the next one or 2 years, you might see them coming back. Especially the larger names, and especially if a lot of the foreign flows do come in, that money could probably flock to a segment like that.
So khana, peena, len den, and nahana dhona. That's how it works.
And the world of technology, the gadgets.
Yeah, people are getting their houses AI enabled, so all part of the deal. But you know, since you did talk about the election uncertainty, how are you gearing up for that tactical trade, tactical position, however you want to call it?
No, I don't think it makes, honestly, doesn't make sense to really kind of position yourself for it.
Okay.
I think in the past, you know, trying to position and trying to kind of figure out which way this goes is honestly not been a very rewarding proposition. I think the best is to assume that there will be continuity, there will be stability, and that there is no risk from the political side as far as the India growth story comes. I think that should be the hypothesis with which I would want to kind of be in the next Samvat and enter in 2024. So I honestly would not think it's worth kind of yet playing on that. I clearly believe India's growth is intact. We have been growing at about 6% for the last decade. There's a good chance maybe this goes from 6% to 7%, but that's going to be a fantastic situation. I mean, truly India is experiencing Goldilocks, which means high growth, moderate inflation. My view is this is something which is likely to sustain.
Do you sense any exuberance in this market? You know, when we talk about mid and small caps, like Nikunj was talking to you, defense, railways, a lot of conjecture out there, whether you want to be there, whether the best is already out of the way. Do you think?
I mean, I totally agree that at current prices, now there is exuberance in the defense side, on the railway side. There is currently exuberance in the sense the valuations are very high. But I don't see them correcting meaningfully. It's just that they could just take a pause, consolidate maybe for a couple of quarters, because they're also very dependent on the government and the government spending. A lot of investors may just kind of take a step back and say, let's figure out what's going to happen in terms of the May 24 elections, and then really take a call. But otherwise, I clearly believe that the capex cycle has just started. By 2030, probably more than $1 trillion are going to get invested in infrastructure. So there's still a very, very long runway of growth for these companies.
Okay, so you could look at me and we'll make it in 2 minutes. I'll put stocks which I know you owned. I don't know whether you still own them. Radico Khaitan, yes, no?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, continue to own it, have been owning it for a while, continue to own it, still like it. Margins are expanding. Their premium portfolio is still growing at about 20% in volume terms. It's still long way to go.
Hitachi.
Still continue to own it. I still think the big opportunity is not yet played out. I mean, it's probably the best HVDC play.
Mahindra Holidays.
Still continue to own it.
Okay. Tata Elxsi.
Don't own it.
Not anymore.
but have found better plays, not as better companies, but I think as better ideas. I think Tata Elxsi now has got priced to perfection. We need to honestly also as investors be cognizant of that.
You own United Spirits, Radico Khaitan and Sula.
That's right.
Then you own Bikaji.
No, don't own Bika.
You sold it?
Own Pratap.
Okay, so you own Pratap.
Yes.
You own Pratap, okay.
Yes.
So what is the combination like? Chakna and Bhujia?
Khana pina. Let's leave it at that.
One stock, hypothetically, if you had to say, okay, I have option to, let's say, only buy 3 stocks, and I'm going on a world tour for 3 years where I don't have access to my phone.
Right.
And I will only check my rates once after 3 years.
Right.
But I know these businesses will last.
Yes.
The stocks may be volatile. Elections may come and go.
Right.
But these are 3 stocks like this, like Buffett says, leke bhul jane ka.
So probably a collection of all the names that you mentioned.
Three.
But I still think the 3, especially Radico, Sula, in the financials, I think Home First Financial. That's a tech-driven, affordable mortgage lender. I think these are the kind of businesses which I think will continue to grow
Daru
and
comes
remain.
on the first on Diwali.
Radico, Sula. Home first.
Yeah, Nikunj, because I think by 3 years, I think maybe yet for the next 10, 20 years, the whole alcoholic beverages business will continue to grow. We probably are just at the start of this cycle.
Wonderful. So give me a high five. Wonderful to have you.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure.
Thank you
Been
so
acting
much.
for 20 years with you.
Thank
so
you.
high five to banti hai.
Thank you.
You know, I must, since his topics are Radico and Sula, so Delhi residents apparently have consumed liquor worth more than 100 crore rupees over the last fortnight.
Just 100 crores.
15
Just
days.
100 crores.
And they're struggling to breathe right now, but alcohol
You
consumption
look at
is
the
right
number
there.
which is going around, how much gold Indians have bought on Dhanteras. And that I think is staggering
Yeah,
numbers. So
that
tomorrow
also.
morning when markets
Yeah.
will open, where are the jewelry stocks actually? Let's take a look at them and then we'll take a break right now. Let's look at our jewelry
TBZ.
stocks. TBZ, no, I mean Titan is the other one,
Titan,
Kalyan is the other one, which you would imagine that, they are the ones who would be large beneficiaries. So this actually could be a mini theme in making Diwali consumption this time. Shall we take a break? Yes.
Nilesh, pleasure having you as always. We look forward to bigger smiles and lots more stocks that Nikunj will ask you on your list.
Thank you so much.
Next year.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you. All right, time for a quick breather then right here on the show. And as we step into a new Samvat, ET now brings you a whole host of market insights to decode what's in store for the new year. So this Diwali, get ready, taiyar hoke aiye, and stay tuned because we've got some very special programming. And as we do that, let's hear it out from some top market voices as what the year ahead is going to bring in store for us. Is it, given that it was a steady year for large caps in summer 2017-9, and it was a small caps which certainly has seen plenty of action. So how is summer 2080 going to pan out? Will it be a case of boom or bust for the broader markets? Where is it that you should be parking your funds? Let's hear out the biggest market voices.